having to re-record this bit. Anyways, I've got my Christmas shopping done, at least for one person. Here's Dad's new car, a 1991 Volvo 240 sedan. How about that for a find, huh? Darn good car, I say. 4-cylinder engine, fuel injected, runs pretty strong too. A little over 130,000 miles on it, and look at this interior. 3-speed auto. Yeah, very late 80s, early 90s blue. This even has a cigarette lighter. Yeah, it's running. Yeah, was running pretty good. And I would say this was running pretty well earlier, but then then the engine cut out and I had to pull off the road. And I think I figured out, or at least I have the plausible theory as to why it stalled when it did. Because from my understanding, this thing was sitting for a while before it came up for sale. There's probably stuff floating in the gas tank, and I put gas in it, so that probably dislodged something. Something got jammed on the intake, and then couldn't get gas anymore. Of course, some good folks stopped and came over to help me push this the rest of the way off the road after it stalled the second time. Of course, a watched car never fails. It started right up after the guy had me crank it over to listen to see if he could find something wrong under the hood, and yeah, it just fired right up. Go figure. So I guess this thing might need a can of sea foam and a good run. So with that incorrect theory in mind, I set out to replace the fuel filter. This was difficult because the main filter is under the car, and I did not own an impact driver at the time. And an impact driver would have been very helpful for tightening the banjo bolts so they didn't spray fuel everywhere. I was able to get the fuel filter and pump back together and reinstalled on the car after a second try. However, as it turned out, that was not the actual problem. Show you this label. Unleaded fuel only. Essence sans plomb. What is that? Enverbleiter Kraftstoff. Endast Bleifree Benson. So don't put any leaded gas in this. I'll just voice over this part to more concisely convey how I was feeling at this point. I was feeling defeated and frustrated. Even with searching online forums, I couldn't figure out why the car would not start. As everybody was arriving for the Thanksgiving feast, I was turning into a trunk goblin trying to check if the fuel pump was dead. The fuel system was functioning as intended, of course. With my dear father helping, he knew about the car at this point, we replaced the crank position sensor, which was a struggle by itself because of the sensor's location on the bell housing behind the engine. This did not solve the no start. Alright, finally got the ignition coil. Let's put that on and see if it'll fix this darn car. Well, I replaced the coil and there was a lot more spark. But of course that's not the actual cause of the problem. What I'm thinking is now the problem is this little brain box here. Alright, I think that actually did solve the problem. I just need to properly mount it, but I'm not quite there yet. So I think I'm going to change the spark plugs. Helps to have an extension for working on the back 2 cylinders, because there's that lifting eye and the heat shield and other stuff in the way. Okay, maybe just an extension for cylinder number 3, because number 4 at the back, there's not quite enough room for the extension I have. And these are the 4 spark plugs that came out of the engine. 1, 4. So, yeah, I mean, they're dirty, but yeah. But hopefully that helps. And if you need to know the number, almost. It's actually running. Holy cow. It's shaking a little bit, but it probably just needs to be warmed up a little, so holy cow, this thing's actually been fixed. For the moment, it's running. There's a couple of other minor things like the wipers, but it's running. Holy guacamole. Alright, well, it actually ran. Guess I should throw the plates on it and run around the block, see how she goes. Probably needs new belts, but listen to it purr. And it drives just fine. Yes, I got the car running just before the Christmas holiday. A good lesson to take from the whole experience is to properly diagnose a car. Otherwise I might have fixed everything but the actual problem. I could have saved myself from most of the frustration if I had known how to diagnose the core problem instead of loading the parts cannon, as it were. However, getting the car to run wasn't the end of working on it, though. There were other things like the tires, shock absorbers, and timing belt that needed attention. The front tires were clearly bald summer tires, and the local tire shop had new all-seasons in the correct size. The car also needed an alignment, but the shop wouldn't perform the alignment until the struts were replaced as well. Said shop was unfamiliar with the strut design on a European car, however, so initially they said the parts were wrong. Thankfully, one of the guys at the parts house had worked at a Euro car dealer, so he called up the tire place and informed them. Unfortunately, the car would have to stay at the tire place overnight, so a Chrysler Cirrus was loaned to me. Alright, so while waiting for the Volvo to be done at the tire shop, I ended up with this loaner, this Chrysler Cirrus. Alright, 1,000-mile update, I guess. And for the last couple of things that I've had done, I finally got all the shocks and struts done. Ride's pretty nice now, actually. And as you can hear, it's actually running and idling. Still haven't figured out why it doesn't like to idle, especially when cold, but I did get a timing belt, and I'm currently waiting for the time I take it to the shop. Because I've looked into it, and I could do it, but I don't want to do it myself. So I'm going to have somebody else do it and pay them. As I almost forget to record this, but yeah, timing belt done, and the guy even wrote down date and mileage. And as I was told, and it was even shown the timing belt he pulled off of it, and yeah, that probably would have let go on the highway fairly quickly, so good thing I got that replaced. Still would not have been as expensive if a Subaru decided to let go, because this is a non-interference engine apparently. It still would have been a real bad day if the timing belt let go. Alright, quick thing. This is actually a 1992 Volvo 240, because the guy who did the timing belt, he actually ran the VIN, and this came back as a 92 and not a 91. Anyways, in other updates, I tried to replace some of the interior lighting, so the shifter lights up now. Yeah, that's pretty neat. But unfortunately, in trying to make the dash a little bit more visible, I ended up breaking both of them. Both of those bulbs. So now I can't really see, so I'm going to have to do some silly stuff to drive at night. And silly they were, like balancing my phone on the center console so it illuminated the dash. And that's how I drove the car for several weeks. It was more or less my daily driver at this time, as the Volvo had proven reliable and was quite comfortable in the snow. I had also started skiing for the first time in years. As I was now confident in the car, I started taking it up into the mountains. On a return trip, I noticed the gas cap had been leaking during left turns. I swung by one of the parts stores and paid less than $1 for a new O-ring seal. After properly cleaning the fuel residue off the car and a wash in general, I think the car looks brilliant against the snow. Okay, so this is what the trunk pass-through is actually for. Yeah. So you can carry your skis without having to have them on top of the car. Another small thing, I swapped the MAF sensor with one that was in the trunk, and that eliminated the rough idle problem. The mass airflow sensor that came from the trunk is a Bosch hot wire type, whereas the MAF sensor that was on the intake is a much newer, aftermarket, hot film style sensor. The hot film sensor can sometimes cause these sorts of problems. After switching to the old, genuine Bosch sensor, the car had a little more passing power and would actually idle without stalling. And I did reattach the rubber mount to the MAF sensor body. I decided to visit Missoula, Montana, so confident was I in the car. It was a very overcast February Saturday, but I enjoyed the trip. There were things to see, like the BNSF rail traffic. If I had planned further ahead, I probably could have seen more, but I didn't, so I had to drive home through the dark, which was fun, because I still didn't have gauge cluster illumination. All of the parts stores I went to did not have the correct bulbs. After that, it came time to give Dad a new car. By this point, everybody had been saying things in the spirit of, it'd be funny if you kept the Volvo and gave your Subaru to Dad. which is what I ended up doing. In preparation for the handover, I finally rectified the hesitation issue the Subaru had, and had new tires put on as well. Good thing I did, as there was no escaping the late winter weather. The Subaru had a layer of ice on the front halfway through that trip. We brought back Dad's tired Oldsmobile, which was the excuse for buying the Volvo to begin with.
I have no clue why I do the things I do.
But it did survive a drive into the foothills up some terribly abused dirt roads.
Interesting update, I guess, because some things have happened as of late.
I unintentionally locked both keys in the car overnight. The Volvo is very much a sturdy car, as the recovery guy who helped with unlocking it struggled to pry the door open enough to work the lock from inside. The driver's side door handle has become increasingly unable to open the door, likely because of the pot metal pieces wearing out. Here's how the door should open. Another problem that appeared after locking the keys in the car was the exhaust going flaccid. Annoying to listen to going around corners. I visited a local body shop to get their opinion on the cracking on both sides of the trunk. From the looks of it, the car was probably struck from the rear, so most of the trunk from another sedan was welded and bodged on as the seam in the trunk would suggest. I think I found the problem with the exhaust. That looks like somebody tried to booger weld the muffler on and didn't do a very good job. So now, it finally gave up, so now the whole thing is moving. Well, that explains the problem. I think I can get that fixed. I could probably weld that myself.
Yes, I fully admit to being stupid. Apparently I like it on the rocks. No clue what's happened to me. I don't know why I was so terribly cautious with my Subaru Outback, and suddenly I'm all cavalier with a vehicle that is absolutely not off-road capable in any sense of the word. Oh well.
Yes, at last. I finally replaced both the bulbs behind the gauge cluster, and now it actually lights up. Of course, my camera has terrible low light performance, so it definitely doesn't look that bright on camera, but at least I can actually light up the dash. I'll tell you more about it. Expanding on what I was on about at work last night, I replaced both dash bulbs, so now I can see the gauges at night. It was smart of me to buy 3 of the bulbs. I couldn't get the first bulb screwed in, so I pried up ever so lightly on the metal ears on the bulb, which worked. I tried to do the same with the second bulb, gingerly adjusting the metal tabs. Then one side broke off. The bulb still screwed in, but didn't work. Good thing I ordered 3. With my being terribly left-handed, I was able to fit the third bulb without adjusting anything. Clearly the dash has been messed with, as the old bulbs are slightly different. It was also a nice day for a drive. I didn't go any further with seeing the mud, and knowing the Volvo is not an off-roader. Finally fixing the wipers getting stuck on issue. A common cause of this is corrosion getting between where the motor grounds to the case, and there it is. Let's see if a cleanup with sandpaper helps. Here's the wiper motor in action, by the way. The tab on the motor case cleaned up well. I had to break out the Dremel tool for the cover. Hopefully I didn't take too much off. Would have been nice to have a flap wheel for the Dremel, but I don't have one for some reason. And before I forget, technology connections. This is a bit like an electromechanical pinball machine with the plastic cam pushing contacts around.
Hopefully that fixes the wipers getting stuck on issue. We will see.
Alright, let's see. Oh, and it stopped. Oh, and 3. I think the relay works. I've heard it click, so let's see. Yep, intermittent works. Single wipe again. Oh, that's high speed. Low speed, and it shuts off. But it looks like my wipers work. They actually stop, so yeah, I'll count that fixed. So I was driving around and I was watching the temperature gauge going up, and I was starting to freak out. Figured it out. The fan shrouds come off, and it was probably stopping up the fan in there. I am surprised the fan did not explode. It definitely made contact. Where is it? Yeah, there's a hole in it. And I think the fan shroud may have fallen off before, but it's just 2 tabs on the bottom that hold it on, and two screws, one of which is missing, and the other has pulled right through, so need to find something to add to that and another screw. Alright, found a screw that has it held on, and then I think a little bit of mechano and that washer. So it's on there now, so hopefully that solves that problem.
Yes, I do have to park into the shade. It's already getting hot. We're only a week into June, and the air conditioning does not work in my car.
That didn't light up before. I don't know what caused that to light up, but it works now, I guess. I ordered a new muffler from IPD almost a month ago, feels like. I didn't really want to do it myself. I didn't have the tool to take the bit of the old muffler that had rusted onto the exhaust. So I scheduled an appointment with a mechanic and had one of them install it for me. And it's a lot quieter than it was. They were even able to reuse the original exhaust tip that sticks out under the bumper.
For $1,500, I think I got my money's worth, even if I had to fix some things myself, but this is, in fact, a pretty good car. Now, of course, it's still not perfect, and there's still things to fix, like one of the dash bulbs burning out already. But yeah, I mean, most of a year on, it's pretty well done. And I think if I do stuff like this again, which I will be, I'll probably have an easier time of it because I have a little more experience. Also, by the way, it's only late September and we're already getting fog out here.